Geoffrey Chaucer, the first great English poet, was born in London about the year 1342. The exact date of his birth is not known. His father, John Chaucer, was a prosperous wine merchant. Geoffrey Chaucer's father shifted to London before 1328 and he thrived in London as a wine merchant and came to be considered among important traders of the city. I think this is the reason he had an access to the royal court. Hardly anything of importance is known about his childhood and boyhood. However, all Chaucer's biographers take it for granted that he must have attended one of the three schools of good academic standing, which was attended by the sons of well-to-do merchants. It is surmised that love of reading and other intellectual interests must have been acquired by the poet while he was at school. At about the age of 12, Chaucer's schooling was cut short, and we find him to be a page in the house of Prince Lionel, the third son of King Edward III. His main duty was to wait upon the wife of the prince, Duchess of Clarence. As in this video, we are going to talk about the major works done by Geoffrey Chaucer. So we will directly jump into the main topic. There is no authentic chronology of Chaucer's works. It is customary to divide the works of Chaucer into three periods: that of the French influence up to 1372, of the Italian influence 1372 to 1385, and of the English influence 1385 to 1400. They are called French, Italian, and English periods for different reasons. During the French period, Chaucer was a disciple of French poets and was following their methods and their versification. In the Italian period, he didn't become a disciple of Italian poets. They enlarged his horizon. He became original. In his third period, he did not become a disciple of any previous English poet. This period is called English because he started writing of English life and English characters. These periods are not to be accepted rigidly. For instance, the French influence persisted throughout his literary career, and though he learnt from various masters in France and Italy, he wrote for the most part on the basis of his observation of English scenes and English life. Let's talk about the French period. Chaucer decided to write his poems in the East Midland dialect as it was spoken in London and the court. This was the king's English, but he did not adopt the Anglo-Saxon or the Norman French poets as his models. While he was in service in Prince Lionel's household, he came under the influence of French literature and he took French poets as his masters. These poets, of course, could not express vigorous feelings, nor they were great observers of life, but they were masters of versification. From them, Chaucer learned the use of rhyme and various meters. Chaucer also followed the conventions of their poetry. Every poem must begin with a dream and then lead to an allegory. There was also a lot of moralizing and many digressions. Love was an end in itself. Love of women was supposed to purify man and take him near God. Chaucer adopted all these conventions and became like a French love poet writing in the English language. Chaucer took French poets like Guillaume de Lorris and Jean de Meung as his masters. Chaucer began by making a free verse translation of a famous allegorical verse romance called Roma de la Rose. This poem was in two parts. The first part, consisting of 4,058 lines, was written by Guillaume de Lores in the middle of the 13th century. The second part, consisting of about 16,000 lines, was written by 40 years later by Jean de Meung. Chaucer made a thorough study of this poem, and his manner and method of writing were greatly influenced by this work. Chaucer did not make a literal translation of the Roman. He adapted the original, shortened it considerably, and made a free translation of large portions. Second notable work of Chaucer was The Legend of Good Women. In The Legend of Good Women, Chaucer made his first collection of tales. The poem is written in heroic couplets. Chaucer's next poem, The Book of the Duchess, is also cast in the conventional French pattern, but it is slightly different from them in that it is an elegy as well as a love vision. The poem begins in the conventional manner. This poem was basically an elegy which was written on the death of the first wife of John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, and she died in September 1369. And Chaucer wrote his poem shortly after this to sing her praises and depict the sorrow of her husband, who was the poet's patron. Next notable work of Mr. Chaucer is A Complaint unto His Lady. It is a complaint of a lover to his lady who does not respond to his love. It is a formal lament and is conventional and does not appear to be autobiographical. It is probably the earliest original work of Chaucer. It introduces into English poetry a new meter, terza rima. Next, I would like to talk about Chaucer's poem, The Parliament of Fowls. This poem was probably written in 1382 to celebrate the betrothal of Richard II to Anne of Bohemia. There is a social allegory also in the poem. The eagles which are present in the poem represent the nobility. The waterfowl represent the merchant class. The worm fowl represent the lower middle class. And the seed fowl represent the peasants. The impatience with the aristocracy displayed by the birds of lower order may be interpreted to represent the discontent which culminated in the peasants' revolt of 1381. The subject of the poem is love. Chaucer uses a 7-line stanza called the rhyme royal. Now let's move towards the Italian period of Chaucer. Chaucer went to Italy in 1372 and spent a considerable time in diplomatic missions to Genoa, Pisa, Florence, and Lombardy. This was a turning point in his literary career. He imbibed the spirit of Renaissance. He read Dante and Petrarch, and his outlook was considerably changed. Gradually, he was liberated from the conventions of French poetry and started looking at life as it was. Chaucer was greatly influenced by one Latin book of Boethius, the Consolations of Philosophy. Chaucer translated this book into English prose. Chaucer was not a Latin scholar, and the translation is very poor, but Chaucer made use of philosophy of Boethius in the House of Fame, Troilus and Criseyde, and the Knight's Tale. The House of Fame is a transitional poem. He is still under the spell of the love illusion of French poetry, but he learned to take at life and character as it is. In different books of this poem, he experiments with different methods of narration. It was planned as a grand allegory on the way fame and rumors spread in the world, but Chaucer got tired of the artifice and left it incomplete. The poem begins with a dream, but as it proceeds, we can see real persons and scenes. Chaucer is no longer the slave of French conventions. A very important literary piece of work of this period was Troilus and Criseyde. Whenever I read about Troilus and Criseyde, I always remember the movie Dil Chahta Hai. And now please don't skip the video to watch the movie. Chaucer's next poem was Troilus and Criseyde. He took the story largely from Boccaccio's second Philostrato, but transformed a cynical narrative of courtly love into a thoughtful study of human relationships. It is a long poem extending to more than 8,000 lines, but it has a very simple story. Troilus and Criseyde is the first great poem in English. It is a long poem, but it reads like a psychological novel, a novel of character. Chaucer has proved to be a poet, dramatist, and novelist, all in one. That is the reason he is called father of English poetry and English language as well. In 1386, Chaucer was elected as Member of Parliament. This period is considered as the most glorious period of his literary career. This was the time when he wrote unfinished masterpiece of English poetry, the Canterbury Tales. Canterbury Tales had a great plan. It was about to become a medley of that age. The plan was to tell two stories by each pilgrims while going towards Canterbury, and then two stories while coming back from the pilgrim. But Chaucer managed to write only 24 stories. He died before he could complete it. These 24 stories reflect the whole picture of the society of that age, because these pilgrims belonged to all walks of life. So they had a strong glimpse of the Chaucerian society. The characters here are not heroes, as in romance. They are like us, very much lifelike and alive. We see them breathing in front of us. Chaucer gave new life to Midland dialect. English had started to become the official language of courts and schools. So, this was all about Chaucer and his major works. I hope you have learned a lot from this video. I really want to stay connected with you people. So, in the next video, we are going to talk about the major works of his contemporaries and other writers which were present in the age of Chaucer. So, at the end of the video, if you feel good enough, please subscribe and turn on the notification icon, because I really want to stay connected with you. We will be meeting next time with the next chapter. So, stay tuned till then and keep subscribing my channel. Keep watching the literature which is going to be have a magic on my channel. Thank you so much. Thanks for being with Mehreen.